Hello everyone. We're going to talk today about calibrating a grain drill. Calibration is one of the most important things you can do when you're planting your cover crop seed, especially when you're doing a seed mixture. Most of the time when we're doing a single mix, a lot of times the charts on the drills, you can match up with what the factory setting is already there. But we're going to go through the process of calibrating this drill. So what we're going to do first is we're going to start off by measuring off 200 feet in the field. And the reason we do that, we measure 200 feet off in the planting conditions to replicate the planting conditions, the drill, where the drill is going to go through. And 200 feet, it's far enough to get some of the differences in the field, but short enough that we are able to run through the process easily without too much time being involved. So I'm going to set a stake. Got a stake set, and I'm going to walk 200 feet in the area that we're going to be planting. So as I go through here, I can really notice the difference in the soil types, the topography, so it's really important to get that 200 feet down. The next step in the process, once we've measured out 200 feet in our field where we're going to plant, the next thing is to take chalk and put a mark on your wheel. Once we've calculated our 200 feet, we've measured that out, and we put the mark on the tire. Now we have to count the revolutions of that tire in the 200 feet. So Brooke's going to do the counting, and I'm going to do the driving. Once we've traveled our 200 feet and marked our wheel and counted the number of revolutions, what we need to do is take the width of our drill and take the length that we traveled, because we need to determine how much acreage we covered in that 200 feet. Now that we've ran our 200-foot course, and with the mark we've measured that we need to get the 200 feet, we need 22 revolutions of the tire. So in order to calibrate, our next step then is to jack up the drive side of the drill, and you can look in the front of the drill to determine which is the drive wheel. In this drill, it's right here. So I'm going to jack the wheel up so we can turn it by hand with the drive wheel. Now that we've got our drill jacked up and our drive wheel is free, the next thing we need to do is collect seed from one of these seed tubes. So generally you can use any type of bag, something that can collect the seed while we do and make that drive wheel turn those 22 revolutions. All drills are different, but you just need to be able to unhook one of the hoses, and then I attach just a simple Ziploc bag of sort. And then we use some type of clamp to clamp it so we can collect our seed from those 22 revolutions. One of the next steps that I'd like to do when I'm calibrating the drill is each drill has its own factory settings for different seeds. If you're using a single species, a lot of times you can find that type of seed on this chart and make your rough setting first to kind of narrow it in. One of the next thing is if we're doing a cover crop mix, and that's what we have here, then what we do is we take the cover crop mix, and I'm going to pour it over top of the spouts that we're going to collect seed from. Okay, now that we've got our seed over top of the seed tube, I want to also point out that it's a good idea to measure more than just one seed tube, especially once you get a bigger drill. You want to do multiple seed tubes to get a more accurate calibration. But what we're going to do now is, we knew once we traveled the 200 feet that we needed to spin the wheel 22 revolutions to equal the amount of area that we covered that we're going to calculate. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now that we've got our 22 revolutions, we can take a look down in to see the amount of seed that we've actually caught, and we'll move on to the next step of the process. Okay, our next step in the process is to weigh out the seed that we collected in the 22 revolutions. What I like to use is an electronic scale. It's really quite accurate because some of our seeds are very light, and we wanted to do an accurate calibration. We want to weigh out accurately. So we turn the scale on. We want to make sure we zero it out correctly, and then we dump the seed in that we collected into the container. And based on the scales, we have 0.06 of a pound of seed collected in those 22 revolutions. Now that we have the weight off from one of the seed tubes, and that was 0.06 of a pound, what we need to do is multiply that by the number of seed tubes, which is 17, and that gives us what we dropped in those 22 revolutions is 1.02 pounds of seed. And so in order to find out what the seeding rate is per acre, we divide that by the area we covered, which is 0.049, and that gives us a seeding rate based on the setting of 20.8 pounds per acre. Okay, once we've established that our seeding rate at that setting 15 is that 20.8 pounds per acre, one of the things I always like to do is go back in, start your own chart down here and start writing down that particular seeding mix in which setting gives you that 21 pounds that you're shooting for. That will save you a lot of time in the future looking up, so we can make that rough setting right to the start before we start the calibration process. Okay, our last step in the process is to kind of verify our calibration on the ground. What we want to do is we want to actually run the drill. We want to run the drill on the 200 feet in the actual conditions that we're going to be planting. So we still have our bag attached to the seed tube. So I'm going to run the 200 feet, and then we're going to recalibrate this to make sure that we're double checking our figures and our numbers and making sure that we're getting the accurate, the proper seeding rate in actual field conditions. Okay, our last step is to kind of verify our initial calibration with the calibration running the full 200 feet. So we attach the bag, so now I'm going to unhook the bag. With the seed we caught in that last pass, we're going to reweigh it. Again, make sure we zero out our scales. Let's add the seed to see how we did. And there we have it. We're pretty close. 0.06 pounds to the acre.